What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to have a little bit of a chat about sideboards and whether we need them in a Digimon trading card game. Now, a couple of days ago, I did a video about mulligans, and in the video, and whether we needed them and what the impact would be, etc. And in that video, I suggested maybe talking about sideboards, and I asked you guys to let me know, and blah, 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 and I did get a bunch of people getting in touch in various manners going, hey, Wossy, that's the kind of video that we would kind of like to see. So, okay then. Let's talk about sideboards. Now, for those of you that don't know, sideboards are only relevant in a best of 3 series, and best of 1s, they just don't work. And the theory is that you have a certain amount of cards that you have off to the side that are not in your deck. And after game 1 of a best of 3 series, and then after game 2 as well, if it's not over by then, you are allowed, if you so wish, to switch out cards from your main deck with cards in your sideboard. Now, you've got to pick what's in your sideboard before you get going, and then if you don't have the right cards in your sideboard, then gutted, quite frankly. You've got to be a little bit careful. But it means you can tech against particular matchups. This was a big question in the Transformers trading card game when it first came out. People were talking about sideboards and whether we needed it and all of that, and eventually, when proper tournaments started up, they were best of 3 and we did have sideboards. Now, there is a really important thing to note at this stage, and that is that we've had those official webcam tournaments. And when we had those official webcam tournaments, we were not given sideboards. And with Transformers, it was basically, nobody cares. Oh, wait, we're doing official tournaments. Yeah, fine, you can have sideboards. But it was only when the official tournaments came out that a decision was made. But we have had those official webcam tournaments. There were in different regions, and there were 2 days worth, and there were a few of them out there. And they have happened without sideboards. And this is, incidentally, the biggest argument for why we're probably not going to get sideboards, at least in the short term. Because, honestly, if we were going to have sideboards, we would probably already have sideboards. Now, if we did have them, you're looking at around about 10 cards. Transformers were 40-card decks. We had a 10-card sideboard, plus 1 character, don't worry about that. We'd probably be looking at about the same thing here. Maybe up to 15 cards, but that seems a little dodgy. It tends to be somewhere around kind of 20 to 25% of your deck that you can have as a sideboard. And the thing is, this would fundamentally change the way that we build decks. And there are certain cards that I can use as an example here to really essentially show what difference would be made if we had sideboards. So probably the most kind of over-the-top obvious example I can give you is Volcanic Dramon. Now, Volcanic Dramon is one of them, they're red cards. It came out in Booster 1.0, and if you're playing red at the moment, you're probably playing Volcanic Dramon. Now, as a level 6, it is kind of meh. 11 cost to play normally, 3 cost to Digivolve is standard, 10,000 power is low, and it's got security attack plus 1, but the 10,000 power means that if you hit a level 6, you're probably getting deleted in the security anyway. There are more powerful Digimon we can play, and there are other ways to give extra security attack. We're not playing it as a level 6. There are better level 6s out there. The reason we play Volcanic Dramon is for the play skill. Remember, it is play, not evolve. You must play it as an 11 cost to get the skill. When you play it, you delete all of your opponent's Digimon with 4,000 power or less. It is a counter to Rookie Rush. And it is as simple as that, incidentally. It's no more complicated or simple than that. This is there for Rookie Rush. Sure, against regular decks, there will be the odd game where your opponent happens to have 3 or 4 4,000 power or less Digimon. They've had a good first couple of turns. They've got some small Digimon out. And then you can drop this to wreck them. It will happen sometimes. But let's not get too cute here. This is a tech for Rookie Rush. The theory here is If my opponent's playing Rookie Rush, they are looking to play, well, really swarm lots and lots of little Digimon so that they can attack my security. And yeah, fine, they're going to take out my security, and they're going to go down every time they do because they're super weak, but it doesn't matter because there are enough of them that they don't need to survive. If they take out one security each, they're fine. So you play Volcanic Dramon as a counter. But now imagine sideboards are a thing. Every red deck, and honestly it doesn't even need to be a red deck, it could pretty much be any colour you like, just goes, fine, I'll whack 4 Volcanic Dramon in my sideboard. And you play better level 6s. Wargreymon maybe, I like Wargreymon. And then essentially, if your opponent is playing Rookie Rush and you lose game 1, because you might win game 1, and to be fair, whether you do or not, if your opponent's playing Rookie Rush, then for game 2, you whack Volcanic Dramon in. And at its basest, this is essentially where we go here. At its simplest, at its smallest, we basically go, well, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's just go, okay, fine, I'm going to whack this in, and that is a Rookie Rush counter. But this completely changes the way the game is played. If we're playing best of 1, this is largely irrelevant because you can't do sideboards in a best of 1. There are no games or between games where you can put stuff in and out. It doesn't make any sense. But in a best of 3, Rookie Rush becomes borderline unplayable because there are a bunch of cards like Volcanic Dramon, and there are a bunch of others. Puppetmon is another nice one. Puppetmon will just rest one of your opponent's Digimon, but then say that all the ones at resting cannot activate. So if your opponent's got lost to resting Digimon, like Rookie Rush tends to, Puppetmon can just shut them down. And my point here is that every deck can just go, oh, what's that? Rookie Rush, yeah, gone. And all of a sudden, Rookie Rush stays as a decent option in best of 1, but goes away in best of 3, it's too easily countered. Or is it? Because if we have a look at BT4, the set that just came out, there are a bunch of 2 cost to play normally 5,000 power level 3s. Like, for instance, Falcomon. Or Lylemon. And actually, if we go back to BT3, you've got Aruramon as well. Is that how I pronounce it? Probably not. Now, you do have to pay to Digivolve them, and that sucks. You have to pay 2, which really sucks. But Rookie Rush is playing most of its rookies from its hand normally anyway, so you can just essentially flood your deck with these, and then all of a sudden you're immune to Volcanic Dramon. So then, do we get a bunch of people who are just playing these cards anyway? Or do we see a sideboard that is just full of these cards, so if your opponent is about to pop in something like Volcanic Dramon, you pop in these cards instead? And that's what really interests me about sideboards. Sideboards are all about the mind games. Sideboards are all about which matchups do I not like? What cards can I put into my deck to try and deal with those matchups? And then what is my opponent going to do? And what can I do to try and undo what my opponent's trying to do? And that's how it all gets super interesting to me. But like I said with Mulligans previously, and I feel very much the same kind of here, I don't really think that sideboards are inherently good or inherently bad. I don't think it gives anyone an inherent advantage or an inherent disadvantage. I think it changes the game. I think it turns it into a different game than we've got now. I think all of a sudden, your tech cards are going to go down because nobody really cares about tech cards anymore, because actually, teching is so much less important when you can just put them in your sideboard, and then rather than having a 1 or 2 of, you have a 4 of, but you only ever have that when you need it in a particular matchup. Although do, of course, bear in mind that it's always going to be awkward because you don't get to bring in your sideboard until game 2. So a lot of the time your sideboard becomes really good after you've already lost game 1, which is kind of interesting. The thing about sideboards are it makes it a much less accessible game. Because now all of a sudden, if you're a new player wanting to get into a game, and I know some people don't like net decking, that's fine. Net decking being where you just copy a deck list online. But the easiest way to get into a card game is to just copy a good list online and learn to play that deck. But now you're copying the list and the sideboard, but now you need the full explanation. You need to know what the sideboard is doing, why those cards are in there, what matchups. You need to make the decision as to what to do with your sideboard in each particular matchup, etc. And that gets very interesting. It's a lot less accessible for newer players because you need to learn so many more things. And honestly, it's a weird kind of thing, sideboards. On the one hand, it makes deck building more interesting and makes teching really viable. And on the other hand, it takes certain archetypes and almost makes them unplayable, because if we've got a good counter, anyone can play that counter. And that's one of the things about the Digimon TCG. Any deck can play Volcanic Dramon. You don't have to be playing a red deck. It's an on-play skill. Any deck whatsoever can put that card in and play it, just like a red card can. Fine, red can also Digivolve up into it in other matchups, which is cool. But in terms of the reason you're playing it, any deck can do that. Do we need sideboards? No. Just like with mulligans, the game is going just fine without them. Would the game be better with sideboards? It would be less accessible, it would be more techy, and it would mean that any deck that can be teched against wouldn't really be viable in a best of 3 series, because anybody would just be able to go, oh, that's a bad matchup for me, I'll tech against it. The thing about sideboards is you get some really, really interesting plays. You get some really good players who almost kind of use a sideboard to build 2 different decks, and they'll have deck build 1 going in, but they'll be able to pivot to deck build 2 if the matchup isn't to their liking. I do find it very interesting, but do bear in mind it will remove entire decks and it will make it less accessible for newer players. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's sideboards. That's why I like them. That's why I don't. That's the argument either way as far as I'm concerned. But I can't imagine for a second that I've covered every possibility here. So I would really like to hear from you guys what you think, what your opinions are, whether you want sideboards, and whether there are any angles on it that you think I've missed that need to be discussed. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk Digimon and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.